Let us put our palms together. We respectfully invite JianHu Shifu to start the class. 3 half bows to JianHu Shifu.
1 half bow to the Buddha.
阿弥陀
阿弥
佛。
陀佛。
Okay, let us begin the class with the 5-minute silent meditation. It is actually a good idea to start any important session of work or study with a few minutes of meditation to remind ourselves to concentrate and stay mindful. Quieting the mind is one of the best nutrients for the mind. Okay, let us begin the class. Let us put our palms together. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Okay, let us have a quick overview of what the Hundred Dharma is about. So if somebody were to ask you, are you in the Hundred Dharma class? What is the Hundred Dharma about? Right? How would you answer that in 3 minutes or even 2 minutes, right? So the 100 Dharmas are 100 classifications of things in the universe. And the majority of those 100 Dharmas, 100 things, are about the mind. And the physical things only cover about a dozen. Only a dozen Dharmas are physical. So this is really interesting. You see where the Buddhas or Buddhist emphasis on when we try to understand the world. And of the mental dharmas, they are the 8 consciousness, right? They're called the dharma, the mind kings. They are the major categories of our mental functions. So they are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. The 6 consciousness is our thinking and emotion faculty, right? But there's the 7th and the 8th consciousness. The 7th is the ego self, the low level, deep undercurrent idea of who I am. And the 8th, called alaya, is the storehouse. The storehouse consciousness. It stores out the karma seeds. Everything that ever happened to you from beginningless time, this karma seed is in there. And that's the mind kings, but it is the mind soldiers or mind mental states, the specific mental states, and there are 51 of them. So the bulk of the time in this class, we're spending it on these 51 mental states. And there's a wholesome states, and there's unwholesome states, and there's neutral states. Wholesome means these mental factors or mental states. They associate with some or all of these consciousness. The consciousness like a commander. They command in different situations, to cope with different situations, to react with different situations. We draw out different mental states, right? So some of these mental states are neutral, like attention, feeling, conception. So these are neutral. They are associated with both wholesome and unwholesome events or states of mind. They can draw up, bring up wholesome or unwholesome states. But then there are some mental states that are the 11 wholesome mental states. So they, by their nature, they help us with our karma. They bring good karma. And there's unwholesome states. So we are in the process of studying the unwholesome states, and there are 26. Of the 26 unwholesome mental states, there are six that are called the primary afflictions, the primary, the root of all our bad thoughts, the root of all the thoughts that will lead to bad karma. So what are they? They are greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, doubt, and false views. Yeah, so we've gone through these previously. And now today, we're going to start on the 20 secondary afflictions. Right? So there's 26 together. We covered the 6 major ones. We spend quite a bit of time on the 6 major ones in quite a bit of detail. And that will help us understand the 20 secondary ones quite easily. Okay? Because the 20 secondary mental states are just special cases of, say, greed or anger or arrogance, or a combination of these 6 primary afflictions. So we're going to study the 20 today. So we covered the primary afflictions, and then we did some of the exercise last time, and now we're going to start with the secondary afflictions. Okay, so let me make the screen even bigger. So the first paragraph is simply the listing from the Hundred Dharma text of the 20 secondary afflictions. Okay, let us read them together. The 20 secondary afflictions are wrath, resentment, spite, concealment, deceit, guile, conceit, harmfulness, envy, stinginess, lack of conscience, shamelessness, lack of faith,
indolence,
heedlessness, torpor, restlessness, unmindfulness, delusion, and distraction. Okay, so I marked 3 of them in a different color because I changed the translation. This translation, the English translation of the 100 Dharmas, we did it, the first translation in 2017, so almost 10 years ago, for I was teaching the class in the Zen Center of Sunnyvale. So I led the translation team, to do this first translation. Over the years, I modified them little by little. So 2013, during the COVID years, I modified some of them. And I'm also taking the chance of teaching this class to revisit the translation and the explanation, right? And now we have the tools, a lot more tools. For example, I use 3 different AI to go through the meaning and explanation, the commentary, the Chinese commentary from different sources, and the Sanskrit original, to consider what will be a better translation. And then these are mental states, and so it's really quite difficult to pin down the exact equivalent. Okay, so I may still change some of the translation as we continue, but it's after a lot of consideration that I made these changes. Okay, so we're going to look at wrath, resentment, spite, and harmfulness. These 4, they form a natural group. They are all different stages or specifics, aspects of anger. So they are basically just anger. So when we talk about the primary afflictions, anger is one of them, right? Anger is everywhere. Anger or hatred. They are the 3 poisons: greed, anger, ignorance. 3 poisons, or the 6 primary afflictions. But anger is a big basket, right? It's a very complicated, a wide-ranging emotion or state of mind. So we're going to look at the relationship between different kinds of anger. So this will help us understand anger much better, okay, and our anger, and how we generate this anger, and how to prevent this anger. All right. So first of all, the 20 secondary afflictions, so upaklesha. So klesha is the term, the Sanskrit term for the primary afflictions, or all afflictions. And upaklesha is the name. Arise from the primary, the 6 afflictions, or combinations or special instances of the primary, right? So the consciousness-only school, which is where the 100 Dharma texts come from, right? The Yogacara school, distinguishes three natures for all dharmas. All dharmas are either good, bad, or neutral, or wholesome, unwholesome, neutral, right? Wholesome, unwholesome. Wholesome meaning what? Meaning it leads to creation of good karma. But what is good karma? What is the definition of good karma? First of all, karma is action, right? But action has consequences. So good karma is defined, or wholesome karma is defined as an action, whether from your mind, from your speech, from your physical action, an action that brings benefits to others, that benefits us. That is the definition of good karma. And bad karma, the definition, or unwholesome karma, is the action that lead to harm, lead to suffering of others. Okay, so neutral, they don't lead to harm nor benefit. That's neutral. So all dharmas are either good, bad, or neutral. Good dharma lead to happiness, bad dharma lead to suffering, while neutral do not lead to a retribution that can be classified as happiness or unhappiness, right? So happiness will be sukha, unhappiness is dukkha. Dukkha, we're familiar with that term. Dukkha is suffering or any type of unpleasantness. However, neutral dharmas, so we have the wholesome and unwholesome, right? So those are pretty easy to understand. But among the neutral dharmas, there are also two kinds, defiled and undefiled. So defiled means that which obstruct our pure mind or our cultivation toward enlightenment. Undefiled means does not hinder. So this is kind of abstract, right? So what it is even with the neutral karma. For example, you walk around, you have free time, so you walk around in your house and you open the fridge, you look at it, you see, try to find something, there's nothing interesting, so you get bored, you walk around. That's kind of neutral, right? Does it hinder our Buddhist practice? So some neutral dharmas do, and some neutral dharmas don't. Okay? An example of undefiled neutral would be the eighth consciousness is neither good or bad. The eighth consciousness, the alaya, which is the storehouse, right? Stores all the karma seeds. So it cannot be wholesome or unwholesome. It has to be neutral because the karma seeds can lead to our future suffering or future happiness or neutral consequences. So therefore, it has to be neutral. Okay, the eighth consciousness is neutral. Because if the eighth consciousness is unwholesome, it cannot generate wholesome consequences, right? But it cannot be said to obstruct the noble path, so it's undefiled, neutral. So the eighth consciousness is neutral, but is defiled, undefiled. Defile means it's kind of dirty, right? It is stained or contaminating. So eighth is not. It's undefiled. It's undefiled, neutral. It doesn't hinder your practice. It doesn't help your practice either. On the other hand, the seventh consciousness, right? The low-level, subtle ego self. On the other hand, the seventh consciousness is also neutral because its actions, the effects of the seventh consciousness are too weak to directly lead to any suffering. It's very low level, very, very, very minuscule. Okay, so they don't lead directly to any suffering or happiness. So in that sense, it's neutral. But we all know the biggest problem that we have, according to Buddhism, is the ego self, right? The attachment to the ego, to the false self. So how can the seventh be neutral? It should be unwholesome, right? No, because it doesn't lead directly to any bad karma, but it does obstruct our enlightenment. So that's why you had to penetrate, you had to shatter the seventh consciousness in order to achieve enlightenment. Okay? So this kind of academic sounds kind of academic, but the point is that in Buddhist analysis, especially in Yogacara analysis, it goes into a very detailed study of our mind. So understand that we have very, below the surface, very, like the ocean. When you go to the beach, you see the ocean, but you only see the surface. You don't see the waves on top. You don't see what's below, right? So all these things below our sixth consciousness level, there's all kinds of things going on, right? So the seventh consciousness is acting there all the time, but is subtly obstructing our practice. All right. Another point we want to learn about the 20 afflictions, the 20 secondary afflictions that divided into 3 categories: minor, medium, and major. Okay. So the minor secondary afflictions, there are 10 of them. The first 10 are minor. Minor in the sense of scope. How frequently they appear. So minor doesn't mean the effect. Actually, the minor afflictions are most powerful. They actually, can do a lot of damage. But because they are powerful, they are stronger. Therefore, they only occur in specific situations. Okay, so the minor, in terms of scope, comprises the first 10 of the 20 afflictions because the nature is strong and they arise individually. They arise individually because they are strong in character and they arise only in specific situations. For example, the 4 we're going to study today: wrath, resentment, spite, and harmfulness. They are all examples or specific instances, aspects of anger, and they're strong. They cause a lot of harm. But you don't have strong resentment all the time, right? If you do, you'll be in trouble. So they only occur infrequently in special situations. So medium or intermediate scope afflictions, there are only 2 of them. They are the lack of shamelessness, lack of shame, and lack of embarrassment. Okay, so you're not embarrassed when you do something wrong. That's an affliction. That is a problem, right? If you're not embarrassed, you're not ashamed of yourself when you have done something hurtful, harmful, something mean. So that's unwholesome. They're wider in general scope. The wider in scope is the other intermediate one. And the last 8 are major afflictions, the most wide-ranging. They are associated with all defilemental states. Let's go back and look at them one more time. See, the 20 secondary afflictions are wrath, resentment, spite, concealment, so you try to hide your mistake, deceit, guile, conceit, harmfulness, envy, stinginess. These are all pretty strong, and therefore they are narrow in scope. They're called the minor afflictions. Lack of conscience, like shamelessness, these are the intermediate scope. They're more wide-ranging. They occur in all unwholesome mental states. So whenever we have a mindset, a thought that's unwholesome, then lack of conscience, shamelessness are there. They're there too. Okay, and the last 8, lack of faith, indolence, heedlessness, you're kind of not careful, torpor, you get lazy, you get drowsy, restlessness, unmindfulness. So these are distraction. So these are, you see, their effects are more minor. They're less severe but because that they are even more pervasive. They occur even more often. When do they occur? They occur in all unwholesome states plus the defiled neutral states. For example, go back to the 7th and the 8th consciousness. The 7th consciousness is associated with all 8 major afflictions, the last A. The 7th consciousness is associated with all of that. In other words, they are present in the 7th consciousness because it's defiled and neutral. But the 8th consciousness is not associated with any of these 26 afflictions. The 6 primary, 20 afflictions is not associated with any of it because it's undefiled neutral. Okay? So the 8th consciousness is very neutral. It's just kind of like the other countries are fighting each other, so I'm always neutral. I don't get involved in any of these things. So alaya is only associated with the 5 universal factors. Okay, so let us now finally look at these specific mental states. The first one is wrath. Wrath, or the other translations we have considered will be ire, rage, fury. Okay, let us look at the definition. Its nature, again, this is the quoted words are a translation of the Chinese commentary text, or commentaries that have been translated into Chinese. These are classic texts. Its nature is that of an explosive flare-up of anger. Explosive flare. So you can have anger that's not explosive, right? So explosive flare of anger toward a present disagreeable object. This disagreeable object could be a situation or a person. So you get angry at a person for what a person does, or you get angry at a situation. Okay? And it's explosive, it's strong. Chinese way, 愤愤不平, 愤怒, upset, strongly upset. Its activity is that of obstructing non-wrath and taking up weapons. That is because someone harboring wrath frequently manifests violent and hostile physical actions. So when you have strong anger, when you have wrath, fury, you may just pick up something and then, start a fight, hurt somebody. Its substance is a specific aspect of anger. So what is the fundamental nature of wrath? It's a kind of anger. That's it. It's just a special kind of anger. Apart from anger, it has no distinct nature or function. So it's not a separate thing. Right? But because when we talk about the 6 primary afflictions, anger, greed, ignorance, arrogance, it's more useful if we dig into the special cases of these primary afflictions. So for example, everybody gets angry, but some people get less angry. Some people are less severe, right? Some people get very angry. For a person who gets very angry at things, it will be really important for them to examine and understand where this strong anger comes from. So the wrath is the first one. Wrath is a strong surge of anger toward an unpleasant person, situation, or other present object, something. You get angry, you get really upset at something, you break a glass, you punch the wall, and the wall didn't do anything to you, but you punch a wall. I did that in college. Anyway, unlike a more enduring resentment, the next one is resentment. Krodha, the Sanskrit, is characterized by an immediate and vehement outburst of anger, often manifests through the body and facial expression. So when you have wrath, people can see it. Your face, your body shows it. It's apparent. Have we experienced these? Yes, right? everybody? If this sudden wrath is not dissolved, it's not dissolved through mindfulness, repeated instances incubate over time into the next affliction, which is resentment. Okay? So we're going to study what resentment is. Cognitive scope. In the Yogacara system, wrath and its root, anger, and anger-associated afflictions like resentment, operate exclusively within the sixth consciousness and is strictly confined to the desire realm. So that's a bit of involved. Okay? So, what is it saying? They're saying two things. Wrath, resentment, spite, harm. These are the four we're going to study. Harmfulness. These are strong anger. Strong anger. And they are only associated with the sixth consciousness. They're not associated with your eye, your vision, right? Your eye consciousness, your nose consciousness, not with the seventh consciousness, not with the eighth consciousness. It's only with the sixth consciousness. Our everyday consciousness. That makes sense. And strictly confined to the desire realm. Now let's review what are the three or the triple realm. The desire realm, the realm of form, and the realm of formlessness. Which realm are we in? Desire realm, right? We are this on earth. Here we are. This is the realm of desire. Because sentient beings, not just human beings, sentient beings, animals, we're driven by desire. We're driven by, this is the most prominent characteristics of our action is desire, driven by desire. Now, if we meditate to a high level, advanced level, we can get to mentally we can get to the realm of form, the higher realm. So you can only get to the realm of form not by doing good deeds. You're doing good deeds, you can get to higher one of these celestial heavens, but it's still a realm of desire. But only through meditation, you achieve a high advanced level of samadhi, you can achieve the realm of form. Okay, and then if you go even deeper in the meditation, your mind is even more subtle, then even form disappears. In other words, you don't have a physical body anymore. In the realm of form, you still have a physical body, although it's a lot lighter than this one. But then in the realm of formlessness, it's only like mental existence. There's no physical body. So these higher realms are attained only through meditation. Now, it's saying that only in the realm of desire, there's anger, any form of anger. In other words, when you are in advanced meditation, like the first dhyana state, the second dhyana state, the third dhyana, samadhi, you don't have anger. You're not angry anymore. If you have anger, as long as you have anger, you won't be able to achieve the advanced meditation state. So this is really interesting to know. So in the realm, sentient beings in the realm of form, these celestial beings in the realm of form, the realm of form, they don't have anger, but they do have desire. They still have subtle forms of greed, okay, but they don't have desire anymore. But that doesn't mean that they have destroyed anger. It means the anger is suppressed in their consciousness. Okay, let us look at the second one. The second one is resentment. Now, other considerations are hostility, enmity, grudge. So, its nature is that of dwelling repeatedly on the object of wrath. So remember, in wrath, there's an object that you get angry about, right? This person. Now, if this similar situation happens repeatedly, so this person gets on your nerves once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, then every time something you interact with this person, you get upset, let's say, then this repeated occurrence, or it could be happening in your mind. You think about it constantly. Then it develops into the next stage of anger, which is resentment. What is resentment? You dwelling repeatedly on the object of wrath, that could be that person, refusing to let go, thereby forming lasting grudge. That's pretty clear, right? Its activity is that of obstructing non-hatred and intensifying spite. The next one is spite. So the next stage, wrath or rage, resentment, spite. Spite is what we'll study. Because he who has strong resentment are not forgiving, always burning with spitefulness. So resentment leads to spitefulness. You want something bad to happen to that person. That's what spite is. You want something bad to happen to that person. That's the next stage. Resentment, hatred or resentment arises from repeated mulling over a situation, building resentment and unwillingness to let it pass. So wrath is about something happens that's unpleasant, you get upset, right? But when the situation is over, when the event is over, some people let go and some people don't let go. Yeah? You know people who gets angry, but then after a few minutes, he's okay, right? And he doesn't, next time they meet each other, he doesn't, get upset because of what happened before. Some, they just forget that. But there are other people who hold a grudge, who remember what happened before. And so the next time when he encounters that person, the attitude is very bad, right? Resentment. That's what resentment is. Repeated thinking about it and making yourself angry over and over. The mind is bound by, another characteristic is unwilling to let go. The mind is bound by hostility, tormenting oneself for a long time to no purpose whatsoever. This is really good. The result of resentment is that you are tormenting yourself for a long time for no purpose whatsoever. It's a foolish thing, right? So in the first case, wrath, something happens and you get upset. In the second case, resentment, nothing need to happen. You just think about it and you get upset, right? Because you don't let go. So you think about, what he did to me last week, and you get upset all over again. That's resentment. That's the development of anger to the next stage. Okay? Have we done that? Do we have something or somebody we think about and we get upset? Even though that person is not here? Nothing's happening right now, but when you just think about it, you get upset. That's called resentment. We do, huh? Used to. Okay, good. Not anymore. Okay, so yeah, this is old. Resentment naturally leads to the next affliction, spite. So that's next one is spite. We're gonna look at that. Okay, memory triggered. The resentment is, wrath requires a direct present object. Resentment functions in memory. Even when the personal situation is no longer present, the mere recollection triggers this affliction. That's the difference. They're both examples of anger, right? But they function differently. Internalized torment, while wrath blasts outward toward others. Resentment burns inward. It's a futile mental loop that yields no positive fruit, serving only to prolong one's own suffering. Isn't that very penetrating, right? So this is what we're doing to ourselves. Shifu often use that metaphor that Buddha uses, which is the arrow, right? Somebody shoot an arrow in you. You bring out the arrow, and you poke it with the same arrow yourself 99 times. That's what resentment is doing. That's resentment. Okay? When you put it that way, it's really stupid, right? and yet we do it. Stemming from initial wrath, if resentment is left unpurified, if we don't do something about it, if we don't recognize that's what we're doing, if we don't recognize that the way of tormenting ourselves, we burning inside, burning ourselves with no effect, with no positive effect, it's just futile. If resentment isn't left unpurified, if we don't study the Dharma or do something about it, it leads to the third affliction, which is spite. So let's look at spite and see what that is. Spite, other translation considers vexation, acrimony, aggravation. Okay? So the third stage of anger, preceded by wrath and resentment, its nature is that of fierce stubbornness, triggered by past grievances coupled with present provocations. Its activity is that of obstructing non-spite and biting others. So what it's saying so far is that, so you have wrath, which is something happens in the present time, and you get upset. That's wrath. If this similar thing happens repeatedly with the same person, you have resentment, right? So resentment, you don't even need to have that person or anything happening, you get upset. Now, if you have wrath and resentment already, you have both already in the past, and it so happens, say, that something happens again, you run into that person again. So new anger, old anger add up together. You really want that person to suffer. That's what the spite is. So its activities are of obstruct, so triggered by past grievances coupled with present provocations. Its activity is that of obstructing non-spite and biting others. That is because when recalling past wrongs and encountering present remember when you argue with somebody and they say, you always do that, you never listen. That's recalling the past, right? I told you so, why don't you ever change? So that is new, fresh anger, fresh wrath, plus old resentment, adding together, even stronger anger. The mind becomes fiercely stubborn, violent, vile, and spits out coarse words that sting and spite others, like poisonous insects. So in those situations, it's very likely that you say something that's really hurtful. That's really hurtful, right? When people are at that stage of spite, they lose their rational judgment, and they can say very hurtful things even to the people they love and care about. Okay, so that's spite. That's raising the bar on your magnitude of anger. So at this point, you just want that person to hurt, to get hurt. I think we have all done that too, right? And then regret it later, of course. In substance, this is also a type of, so basically it's also a type of anger. So when disputes arise regarding the Dharma or non-Dharma, the fellow practitioners, out of a desire for peace, attempt to advise or instruct, one adamantly refuses to accept guidance. So another characteristic of this stage of anger, that is spite, is that you refuse to listen to any advice. Yeah? So you are really angry at this person, you have a strong somebody, a third person try to calm you down. And you won't listen. You refuse. Even though you know that person is trying is doing this for your good, you refuse to listen. You just flat out reject. So this stubbornness in refusing advice. So you see that the rational judgment in our mind, we were losing the rational judgment more and more and more as the anger escalates. This unyielding and unteachable nature, extreme stubbornness, ferocious tenacity, and poisonous malicious heart is collectively called pradasa, spite, or spitefulness. So once anger is not reined in, it's getting to a point of almost out of control. One builds on past and present anger toward a person or situation. The resentment grows, turning to strong feelings and vicious language. It's often coupled with vicious words. And so it may then lead to the next stage. The fourth stage is when you actually planning to do some harm. Okay, so I previously translated malice of intent. But after some consideration, we are using harmfulness or the intent to harm. So unlike simple anger, pradasa, or the spite, is ignited when memory of past resentment collides with present unpleasant trigger. The mind boils over into a fierce, venomous state. That person is a walking venom. A defining trait of spite is a refusal to listen to reason, advice, or friends. If this poisonous spite is allowed to fester without restraint, it escalates into the final stage of the anger series afflictions, malice, or harm. The Sanskrit is vihimsa. It's the opposite of ahimsa. Ahimsa we study in the wholesome states, which is non-harm. So remember the non-harm. Non-harm means that you don't want to harm anybody. You don't want to harm anybody. And the opposite of that is you want to harm this person. You want to harm this person. So let's look at harmfulness. Vihimsa. Malice, malevolence, these are the other translations we considered. Unkindness. Okay, definition. What is harmfulness? Having no compassion or kindness towards sentient beings. Having no compassion or kindness toward either a specific person or a group of people or animals. Its nature is that of seeking to injure and torment them. Its activity is that of obstructing non-harm, ahimsa, and causing distress and persecution. Because one who harbors malice actively oppresses and injures others. You in this case, you may oppress, you may want to injure. You form plans, action plans to make that person suffer. In substance, this is also a specific type of anger. It's the strongest type of anger. A person who has developed malice or harmfulness is seriously planning to hurt others, to use violence or cause disruption to peace. This is dangerous, a dangerous mental state that leads directly to harmful actions. Okay, so let us review what we talked about. There's wrath, so strong anger. If it's not strong anger, it's just anger, right? So the strong case of anger is worthy of consideration. So wrath, we take it out and say, let's study wrath. Okay, we have wrath, strong upsetness, fury. It happens when the situation triggers it. Resentment, repeated strong anguish feeling towards that person or that situation. Okay, so resentment. Nothing needs to happen. You think about it, you get upset. And then resentment and wrath coming together, it escalates into spite. That is when, so the first two, you just upset. You're upset at that person, you're upset inside, you're tormenting yourself, you're burning inside. But then in spite, the next stage, the third stage, you may curse somebody. Yeah? Go to hell. When you say go to hell, that's spite. That's not just resentment anymore, that's spite. I hope you get run over by a car. Of course, you don't actually seriously mean it, but you want to say something that's hurtful. That's something that's hurtful. You want that person to get hurt, spite. Now in the fourth stage, the malice or the harmfulness, you actually are serious about hurting that person. You're serious about making that person suffer. So I think we can probably agree that most of us have experienced the first three stages, right? First stage, wrath, probably quite not unusual. Resentment, yes, towards maybe one or two persons, and spite, probably occasionally, but then afterwards you probably regret, right? Oh, I shouldn't have said that. How come I was so angry, right? I would say that most people doesn't develop into the fourth stage, but you do know people who are in that fourth stage. You do know of people in history, or maybe in your life, who actually want you to suffer and take actions. So this fourth stage is still a mental state, but then the mental state leads to volition, leads to physical actions to hurt you, okay? So when, say, when a parent gets so upset at a kid, he actually beat up the kid, that is harmfulness. When we have these cases of family violence, that's escalated to the harmfulness stage, the fourth stage. Unfortunately, that happens, okay? Here is a interesting fact. Prisons, prisons. Most of the prisons in this world, in the other countries of the world, are punitive. In other words, the prison is designed to make the criminal, the convicted, suffer. You restrain their freedom, right? That's the most basic thing. But then the environment is pretty lousy, and then it's a very unpleasant place. So the idea is that you cause suffering to others, you should suffer yourself. That's called punitive, the punitive model. But then there's an alternative model called restorative or rehabilitative prison model. Okay, so unlike most prisons in the world, Norway's correctional system emphasizes rehabilitation and reintegration rather than punishment for its own sake. So the idea, the Norway's prisons are designed this way. A person is convicted. The person gets sentenced, let's say 3 years, 5 years, okay? So it considers that putting you into the prison itself, the confinement of freedom itself is sufficient punishment, is sufficient, that's the punishment. But then when you're actually in the prison, all the programs, the setup, the prison personnel, the prison staff, the prison programs are designed to help you integrate back into the society as a normal person, as a regular person. There's no inhumane treatment or just really lousy, crowded environment to make you unhappy. The prison staff is there to help you go back. Once you serve your sentence, you go back to the society as a regular person, okay, that you can fit back into. So the idea is that we rather instead of punish somebody who done harm to others, who cause suffering, we rather you do not harm anymore, and that you become a normal citizen when you're out of the prison. Now, does that make sense? Makes sense, right? But why is it only a very small percentage of prisons are designed that way? 90% of the prisons in the world are punitive, including
Finland also.
What's that?
Finland.
Yes. So, yeah, I would talk about that. So, official statistics show that approximately 16 to 22% of prisoners released in recent years were reconvicted within 2 years in these Norway prisons. So, about a fifth or less than a fifth gets, they commit a crime again and they come back to the prison, which is substantially lower than the figures commonly reported for the United States, which is up to 70%. It's called recidivism. So 50 to 70% of the prisoners in the United States, when they come out, they come back within 2 years. They commit a crime again, come back. That's a very broken system, right? So when we look at the situation in terms of the Buddha Dharma, in terms of our understanding of Buddhism, what does the punitive system do? It's deepen the seeds of resentment, right? You resent the environment, and so therefore you learn from other prisoners about these ways of crime. And then when if you try to get back to the society, a lot of places don't want you. It's very difficult to integrate back into the society, right? When they know that you have a record. So that just breeds deeper resentment and spite and harmfulness. So that system tend to deepen the seeds of wrath, resentment, spite, and eventually harmfulness. That's why they come back. So many of them, majority of them come back. They commit crime again. Whereas the restorative system aims to remove the conditions that led to harm in the first place, right? Remove the condition that led to the harmful action in the first place. So I think any sane person would say that which model is more worthy model to try, in terms of the Buddhist analysis, the cause and effect, and the mental, what's going on mentally in these prisoners. So the Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, plus Iceland, they all follow the Nordic correctional model, which is the restorative model. Okay, and unfortunately, that is very rare in this world. So let us open up for questions. Anything you want to ask about these 4 types of anger, or anything you want to comment about these 4 types of anger? Go ahead.
What about post-traumatic stress response? Post-traumatic PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It's like internal rehearsing of.
Yeah, those post-traumatic disorder, usually that person is holding on to the suffering inside. So the person, instead of, there may be anger, there may not be so much anger, but is unable to let go of that experience and then repeating it itself. So it's similar to the resentment. You're repeating that experience yourself inside and you're burning yourself. The person is burning themselves or that person feels hopeless, doesn't know a better way to deal with it. So the mindfulness of feeling meditation that we talked about last year is really important. A lot of people tend to take these feelings as real, meaning that these are my feelings, these are authentic feelings. Okay, we're not trying to dismiss these feelings, but we need to recognize that these feelings do not equal to you, and they don't represent you, and they don't speak for you. These are the waves of the ocean that comes and go. It's like calling the waves the ocean. That's a mistake. Thinking of these feelings are me, that's also a mistake. The I is much more vast than these feelings, no matter how strong they are. So when you identify these feelings as I, then you get trapped. You get trapped in these feelings, these strong negative feelings. So one of the first thing is called, in Western psychology, they also discovered this with the help of Buddhism. It's called cognitive disassociation. Right? Cognitive dissociation, you dissociate your feeling with you, meaning that it's something that happens. It's there, but then it doesn't have to be tied up with my identity. That's a very important discovery. Okay, here's a question in the chat box. How is that some people get so angry and full of wrath, they black out and don't remember what they did? Okay, so this is a very strong case of anger or wrath. Very strong case of wrath. I think that when you are in such a strong emotional state, it's the body's sort of natural protection system. It shuts you off because the emotional overload may drive you crazy. So you shut yourself up. I mean, it's a mental, biological way to protect yourself, maybe. Okay. Well, I think we can ask the experts in the field, but that is my interpretation. Something similar is that why do we forget things? Why do we forget things even though something that's very traumatic for many people, for a lot of people, even though something that's very hurtful, over time it becomes less hurtful, or you're more able to let go even though you don't practice the Dharma. That's also this forget. You basically forget the details and the feeling, and that's also protective for you to maintain a sound mind. And in Buddhism, we don't remember our past lives unless you have advanced samadhi skills. When you have advanced samadhi skills, it is possible to cultivate the ability to see into your past life. But see, why does this ability require samadhi? Samadhi is a highly stable state of mind, extremely stable state of mind from the practice of concentration. So my interpretation is that if we can remember all that happened in the past life, we wouldn't be able to handle it emotionally, right? In a person's life, you have the death of every single person you love when you go through your lifetime, right? If you remember all the bad things, all the hurtful things, emotionally, we're not able to handle it. We'll forget it. We'll forget. So this amnesia of past life is actually protective, and that's why when you have advanced samadhi, you can practice to recall those details because your mind is stable enough.
questions?
Yeah.
What about situation? I actually wanted to ask Shifu earlier today, and Shifu said, come back to that. If someone is having a situation when they have a person who is not repaying the debt.
A person who is what?
Who is not repaying the debt, borrowed money is not repaying and not behaving well. So that's like an arrow coming up repeatedly. Or someone is being exploited at work, they're not considered.
Somebody who's being exploited
At work.
at work, okay.
Not being paid correctly, and it's a recurring situation. So it's almost like a second arrow is in the situation.
Yeah.
To deal with that.
Okay, so when you are being exploited or taken advantage of repeatedly in a situation, right, whether it's at work or in a family or whatever organization, how do you deal with that? So we have to remember in Buddhism, a very core insight is that suffering comes from inside, the Four Noble Truths. Right? Suffering is the first noble truth. The cause of suffering is from false views and false thoughts. False views means your perspective, the way you perceive the situation. You perceive yourself as a victim. You perceive the hurt coming from the other person. That is a delusion. Okay? So you need to turn the false view into the right view. The right view is that nobody can hurt me. Mentally, nobody can hurt me. Only when I allow that to happen. So remember the gift story that Shifu told 100 times. Somebody give you a gift. Somebody give you a criticism. Somebody spreads rumor about you. Somebody says bad things about. Somebody try to destroy your reputation. All of this are gifts. Some gifts are bad gifts, useless gifts. You have the choice to not accept those gifts. And when you don't accept those gifts, they don't hurt you. They only hurt you when you think these gifts are real. Of course, there's the practical aspect of it. When somebody's trying to ruin your reputation by spreading rumors, some people will believe it. Some people believe it. It happens to me. It happened to me over the last 20 years, several times. Usually I was the last one to know. But I didn't know it, it didn't hurt me. Maybe some people believed it, these rumors. But so, I'm here. Still, people follow my teaching, right? So, those people who understand you will trust you, right? So, we cannot control what people say or do. If our suffering comes from other people, we'll never be free. There's no liberation. Because our suffering comes from our own perspective, our own views, and our own mental reactions, the false views and the false thoughts. Therefore, we can liberate ourselves. We can achieve ultimate liberation. We put ourselves into this trap. So therefore, we can free ourselves. We have to remember this and contemplate on that. Okay? So some people get very hurt because at a work situation, somebody, they get targeted repeatedly. But that kind of thing happened to others who survive and become stronger and achieve greater success despite that. Okay? So don't blame the people who blame you, or don't blame the people who try to hurt you. That will happen to everybody. That can happen to everybody. Nobody can escape that. But that is not what causes you suffering. What causes self-hatred is your lack of is when you don't believe that you can survive this, when you don't believe that you have the power, when you don't have the faith that you will survive, when you don't realize the knowing mind is never touched. Nobody can touch your pure awareness. Nobody can touch your knowing mind. They can only affect your consciousness because your consciousness is dependent on conditions. So we need to turn our consciousness into wisdom. But the knowing mind is never touched by anybody. Nobody can touch it. When you realize that knowing mind and you use the knowing mind as the basis, the core of your being, then you will never be hurt by other people. Okay? Yeah, there's a question from Greg. Go ahead.
Shifu, I'm curious about some technical details about deeper stages of samadhi. You'd mentioned that a person cannot achieve the deeper states when they're experiencing anger. And I can concur, deeper meditation is not possible when you're feeling anger. But I am wondering, does it technically mean if a person goes into deeper stages of samadhi that they have removed all anger, or is it just in the state of meditation and when you leave it, you can get angry again?
Yes, that is true. When you exit that samadhi state, you can be afflicted with anger again. So that is why people in the realm of form, they are not liberated. They are more advanced in the sense that they have high levels of concentration skills. They can achieve that extremely serene state of mind, which is very pleasant, very joyful. But it doesn't mean they are enlightened. It doesn't mean they understand the ego self, the false self. It doesn't mean that they don't have anger anymore once they fall out of that state. So it is still a conditioned state. So in Buddha's time, meditations, the spiritual seekers, the gurus have already developed advanced meditation skills into the realm of form and formlessness. It's not invented by the Buddha. Buddha learned from his earlier teachers to achieve these advanced meditation states, but then these teachers believed that that was nirvana, and Buddha or Prince Siddhartha realized that's not nirvana. They're not enlightened yet. Okay, so yeah, when you achieve the realm of form through meditation, the anger is suppressed. It doesn't manifest. But when you lose that concentration, it can manifest again. Okay, go ahead.
Shifu, kind of in a similar vein, can an arhat make mistakes and even look back upon it and think they should have done something different? While I also recognize that they are enlightened, so they're not attached emotionally per se.
Arhats does not know everything. So Arhats could make decisions that's less than ideal, right? That doesn't mean they will regret it. Doesn't mean they'll feel bad about it because they don't have those anymore. They don't have suffering anymore. They don't have afflictions anymore. Arhats do not have any of these 26 afflictions anymore. They are free. Yeah, their mind is at peace. And there's nothing wrong per se about making mistakes or making less than ideal decisions, right? Because unless you are the Buddha, you don't have all the information. You don't have complete information. So making mistakes is okay, as long as you learn from the mistake.
What if you don't learn from it, let's say?
If you don't learn from it, that's ignorance. So that's a form of affliction. If you have that affliction, you're not an arhat.
Okay.
Anything else? I think
at the moment.
I think this fourth stage of anger is very important to know and to reflect on our own experiences, our own emotional experiences, and to see that how they are developed. See, from wrath to resentment. How does it develop from wrath to resentment? Because you repeatedly mull over, right? You think about it over and over, without the insight that you shouldn't do that, without the insight that, hey, this is bringing me to a worse state of mind, right? And then how do you go from resentment to spite? Is when at any point in this development, you don't awake yourself, you don't reflect on yourself, the person doesn't reflect on what the person is doing, and allowing these afflictions to develop, to persist and develop. And so these afflictions have a tendency to get stronger and stronger and worse and worse. They have the characteristics of bring other afflictions up. Okay, to associate with other afflictions. So one thing leads to another. This is a person who lacks the ability to reflect on their own reactions, our own mental occurrences, and not practicing mindfulness. Okay, so you may still, even if you're mindful, you may still get very upset, you may still resent someone, you may still even get spiteful at some point, but shortly after that, a sincere cultivator should be able to reflect on that, have shame or embarrassment, and then reflect on that, and then try to change, and try to terminate the line of reaction, the line of mental reaction, that consciousness stream, right, to go downhill. Yeah, Natalia?
Well, actually, Shifu, I was kind of asking for a friend. There is a situation where people know the salary of other people around. Normal workplace doesn't. Like kind of try to, like almost like when we die, we're supposed to forget the life. So this friend of mine, she's being confronted with a situation where new employee is being paid for less work because they knew they hired in the new circumstances, and her salary wasn't updated as much. So she's facing this fact that it's disproportionately higher salary of a new employee who is doing less work, and she cannot quite quit the job because she has to feed the kid and stuff like that. So I guess Shifu said that, but it's not like I can tell her you have to. She can't really reflect on that. She's just faced with this.
Okay, so the question is, a friend is facing a situation where her salary is lower than a new hire, by quite a bit of percentage. The new hire, probably less experienced, is getting a higher salary. And then, that kind of thing happens all the time. It happens all the time. You don't expect fairness in the work, in the work situation, in the capitalist situation. If you look at a company, like a big company, a big tech company, say, or big financial company, people work to hell, right? Long hours, very hard work. And then their CEOs gets 1,000 times, 10,000 times the salary, and they get away with it. If you get upset with this, it's futile to get upset at this. What is important, though, I think, is to develop your own specialty, develop your own special skills or knowledge, so that people need you. Instead of looking at the salary is a superficial mark of worth. Try to make yourself really replaceable. And it's not as hard as it sounds. If you really like something, if you really need to do something, you spend enough time, you have special experiences that most people around you do not have. When I was studying for PhD, it took me 6 years to get my PhD. And I realized by the time I get my PhD, I know my specific subject better than anybody in the world. And it's not because, I'm not a genius or anything, but because I studied for 6 years, I delve into a special type of recurrent neural networks, and nobody knows it better than I do. It's not really that practical, but but my point is, you can be unique, you can be special, but you need to put in a lot of effort, sincere effort in whatever you do, so that you're better than anybody or most people in that. That is what we should work on. Okay? If the money is enough for you to survive, to feed yourself and your family, you have the choice. You can change your job, but that's not really the ultimate solution. Okay? Make your self-worth irreplaceable. When I was in college, when I was at Caltech, the math is so hard. In high school, all my math test scores, I get perfect math test scores all the time. When I took my first math test in freshman year in college, I flunked it. I never flunked a math test. I flunked it for my first time in my life. I had to work so hard. I took 1 year of calculus in high school, in senior high school. And that 1 year was covered in 2 weeks. 2 weeks at Caltech. So I had to work so hard. Usually my whole weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 2 whole weekends are devoted to this math homework. Okay? So I worked so hard through this for 2 years. Freshman year, second year. By the end of 2 years, the math professor asked me to be a TA. I said, "What, you know me?" He said, "Yeah, you have good answers on your homework." Right? So going from flunking the test and struggling to having the professor recognize, "Hey, you do good answers, good solutions." You need to put in real serious hard work in life to be good at anything. So be concerned with that rather than who recognizes you or who gets paid higher. Okay? Great.
Shifu, going along with the vein of the discussion about anger, I appreciate the 100 Dharmas deconstructing it. What I'm wondering, though, in many ways, we're kind of taught in our culture, when you have anger, transform it. And I think one reason why maybe is because, and I'm just speculating here, because we're not yet enlightened. And so anger arises, much like many other emotions. Can't necessarily stop it. But I'm wondering, is there somewhere in the Buddhist texts or scriptures that describes a transformation, how to address the wrath or the resentment, how to channel it? Especially if it is something, let's just say, a chronic situation, perhaps even world affairs that could raise anger. Rather than tuning it out, is there a way that it could become a productive transformation of that anger energy?
When we talk about transformation of anger, I think every single class we teach how to do that. Look at every lecture, there are teachings that help you change that, right? I keep repeating the false view and the false thoughts. Remember what they are. False view is the perspective, is how you look at the situation. We get angry because we look at the situation in the wrong way. We get angry at the person because we think the person is offending us, humiliating us, or being unfair and so on. That is the wrong perspective. The right perspective is, for example, this kind of things happens all the time, everywhere in the world. It's not worth it to get upset over it. But rather, how do you deal with this gift that the person is giving you? Do you have a better way to deal with this gift? This gift of humiliation, this gift of spreading rumors, this gift of criticizing you, this gift of, handing your credits to others. How do you deal with this gift? Do you have a good way to deal with this gift? So it's a problem-solving issue. It's not a justice issue. It's not an unfairness issue. It's not a how can you do this issue. The issue is a problem-solving issue. So take the engineer mentality. You have a problem, you solve it. How do you turn the situation into something that benefits you? And if you can benefit others, it will be even better. So in the previous question, for example, you perceive this unfair salary situation. Okay? What Shifu is saying is, whose salary is higher is not that important. As long as you can feed yourself, that's good enough. What is more important is, are you improving yourself in some way so that you become a worthy, replaceable person, a member of the society? That is what's important. Or are you using this situation to help you achieve serenity, peace inside? That is that's a worthy effort. A worthy effort is to go inward, learn how to achieve peace inside. Because freedom comes from inside, it doesn't come from outside. It doesn't come from a utopia society. Even Buddha faces assassination and slandering and whatever. But Buddha is at peace. He's achieved ultimate bliss because of his state of mind. So instead of focusing on the outward signs and outward situation, use the situation to strengthen yourself, your inner understanding. This is where your peace and freedom will come from. This is where your bliss will come from. Okay? So transformation begins with a change of perspective. Nobody can hurt you. But of course, we have all these delusions, all these old habits that thinks this way. So we all do, right? We still think this way. But we need to catch it and be convinced and have faith in the teaching. Have faith in the Dharma and have faith in yourself that you can bring yourself to freedom.
So Shifu, let's say we learn from your wise teachings and we apply them and we find success in them. The anger goes away, we have a better perspective. However, the anger arises again, almost in the same way. Is it from a lack of consistent practice or an incomplete practicing the Noble Eightfold
Examine
Path?
your perspective in the situation. When you say anger rises again in the same situation or a different situation. If it's the same situation, then that means you have forgotten the right perspective, the right view that help you remove the anger. If it's the same similar situation and you applied a right view to remove that anger, then you can do the same. So Buddha is looking for ultimate solutions that get rid of the problem forever. So the right view is a view that helps you deal with all such situations every single time forever. Let's say a person is very much concerned with how people view them. Do they view himself as a good person, as a kind person? Let's say a person is very concerned with that. Some people think he's very kind, some people think he's not so kind, some people think he's being a fake. So he gets very troubled by that. The suffering doesn't come from the person who thinks that he's a fake. The trouble comes from he's taking those opinions as something real and using that opinion to hurt himself. He's hurting himself. That's the false view. The right view is everybody will have their own judgments. I will only be concerned. I have a choice. I will only be concerned with those points of view, these opinions that help me grow, that make me better, that make me more at peace, that make me wiser. The other views, I don't need to be concerned with it. These gifts I throw away. That's the right view. So when you have this view and you remember it, every single time somebody criticizes you in such a way, you don't get angry, you don't get hurt. Do you see that? This is getting to the root of the problem. If you get to the root of the problem and you solve it, you will never get hurt again from that kind of cases. That's what is called the root solution, the real solution, not a temporary solution. Okay?
I see, because otherwise it's like cutting off a weed at the ground level, but then the roots regrow the weed again.
Exactly. If you don't get to the root is the right view, the false view and the right view. It's like, you feel stressed. So you go watch a movie, you go hang out with friends. They help with the stress, but they don't get to the root of the stress. Right? So the stress will come back again because you're not getting to the root of the stress. So Buddha teaches to get to the root.
Okay. Right understanding, right thought.
Right.
And then right effort.
Right. The Eightfold Path.
Thank you.
Yes?
Shifu, if one should not expect fairness, like Shifu said, fairness can be tricky. But what about acceptance? Like one cannot even count on acceptance from others. Acceptance.
What do you mean acceptance?
Nature is being kind of turned away from the group, or
so you mean being accepted by the group?
yeah, but
being accepted by the group is an interpersonal skill, right? Interpersonal skill. Learning how to talk. And so the good way. So the question is, what about in a situation in a group situation you want to be accepted by the group? To be accepted by the group is a form of interpersonal skill, right? So it's the right way to do it. The right way to do it is to develop empathy of everybody in the group that you have to work with or that you be with. Even though some people may have enmity, they don't like you, you can still develop empathy. So we talked about this. So we talked about this in the half-day meditation and trying compassion contemplation. Okay, last Saturday, the trying compassion contemplation, how to be compassionate toward the people who don't like you, people who will try to hurt you, people who are unfriendly with you. So there's a lot of methods. The perspective from the past, the perspective from the present, the perspective from the future. There's at least 10 different methods to deal with that. So when you can be genuinely compassionate toward these unfriendly people in your life, then you can have the true empathy. When you have true empathy, you will change the situation. The situation will change. It may not be so fast, but it will change. Okay? These are not quick solutions. It will take time. But this is what ultimately works. All right. Anything else? We should be.
Shifu,
Yeah.
question about acceptance of a group. I just wondering, I see the value in developing empathy and compassion and maybe even not being as concerned about acceptance. But I also wonder if maybe sometimes we need to evaluate the group, right? Perhaps sometimes our desire to join a group we should actually look at, is this a good group for us to join, right?
Of course. So the concern really is not to be accepted by the group, but rather because you have empathy of all people, there is no group division in you, in your mind. That is your mindset. The advanced Bodhisattva mindset is that you can you can be with any group without feeling angry at anyone. That is the advanced Bodhisattva mindset. So the being in the group or outside the group, that really doesn't matter anymore.
Hey, you'd never feel rejected or hurt.
You never feel rejected or hurt. Right, exactly. You don't care if you're rejected by a group, because you treat everyone as your friend. You never feel rejected. Okay, actually, I do want to share something. I thought it'd be nice to share some pictures of the monastery. This is our garden that we just started growing this year. There's some corns and squash and peas. We're doing some road work. We just built this new path, this old path, but we paved it with wood planks and the little rocks so they look nicer. These are the yam leaves, which is really nutritious, and they grow like crazy by themselves. So a lot of times, I haven't bought any veggies for a few weeks now. I sometimes just go to the garden and pick them. Isn't that the biggest zucchini you ever seen in your life? So they just grow that by themselves because we don't always have noticed them and pick them up. So they just keep growing and growing and growing. That's a zucchini. Huge. Okay, we're getting some harvest. Okay. This is bread that Shifu made. Yes, I can make bread.
Shifu makes amazingly delicious bread.
All natural. Sourdough bread. Okay, we paved our road inside because they were like decades old and they're pretty broken up. Yeah, kind of like the picture on the left. That was the condition of the road, and then now asphalt is on the right. That was recently done. That was the process. Okay, we are receiving more and more visitors here. The beautiful flowers and fruits, the vegetation, the deer, the birds. And camellia. We have some amazing camellia, and that's a special kind of yellow rose. I think that's a hawk. There's also endless work too. So anybody. We usually have volunteers coming on weekends to do some work. Okay, so that is our class for today. One thing to remember today is the 4 stages of anger. Remember wrath, resentment, spite, and harmfulness. Let's hope that all of us never get to the 4th stage, but surely we have experienced the first 3 once in a while, right? And how to turn that around. When you detect it at the wrath at the 1st stage, it doesn't turn into the 2nd stage, right? When you detect it at the 2nd stage, it doesn't turn into the 3rd stage. And then when you notice you have such anger, then mindfulness helps, breathing helps, but ultimately what uproots the anger is the right perspective, the right view. Okay, the person who seems to be trying to hurt you, make you angry, they are a product of interdependence, dependent origination. They have so many uncontrollable factors in their life that they don't know how to cope with. They're suffering. So we are fortunate to have the Dharma. It's difficult to deal with unfriendly people. The compassion contemplation meditation is important. Okay, let us conclude the class with a dedication. May the merits of our studying the 100 Dharmas together in order to understand how our mind works and how to identify the different afflictions and to turn them around into a path of enlightenment. May we achieve that purity of mind, and may we dedicate the merits to peace in the world. Okay, we'll see you next time.
We put our palms together and thank JianHu Shifu with 3 half bows.
1 half bow to the Buddha.
阿弥陀
Ami
佛。
Tofo.
Okay, take care. Good night.